Hi guys, so the word on the street is being a landlady or landlord is fashionable. What? That is, the rental market is becoming very fashionable in the UK, in particular the housing market. I'm not so sure about that because here I am stressing about empty units, refurbishment schedules, electrical certificates and even administration. And all the while, some of the UK's biggest companies are now looking at UK property rental as both an investment and solid business strategy. So for instance, let me tell you, Lloyds Bank a couple of weeks ago made its first foray into the rental market by acquiring 45 rental units in Peterborough, and they're just dipping their toe in the water there. The bank actually wants to acquire 400 units by the end of the year and double that again by 2022. So practically 800 units in the next 18 months or so. Gosh, do I know about how stressy it can feel to buy one property. So 800. And Lloyds aren't really the only ones either. John Lewis, who own Waitrose, have a plan to build, that's right, build 10,000 homes, of which the majority it will retain in its portfolio as rental properties. So what's the deal with all these backup rentals? Now, it's quite interesting and something I did when I had a restaurant a few years back. So in my own restaurant, we had upper floors, which were traditionally used by staff as meeting rooms, office space, staff break rooms. But over time, these rooms were barely used at all and became redundant. And that was still a significant area that we were leasing. So we did the maths, completed the renovation and created 4 self-contained studios. And so when it came to selling the business last year, it was lapped up by the incoming owner as he saw that we had rental income coming in that was separate from the restaurant taking. And so it provided diversified income through guaranteed rents and hence more stability. And as you know, diversification reduces risks. So boom. I was kind of doing this before the restaurant too, and still do it now, which is unused space can have value by renting it out. On a smaller scale, we can sublet unused rooms in our home or flat, or even rent out storage space. And we call that house hacking, but that's another video altogether. So this is essentially what is happening with Lloyds and John Lewis / Waitrose. They're hacking on a grand scale through rentals and being landlords in the UK property market. It's neither of their core business, but it's a great way to diversify income from a vast industry in the UK, and it's likely to grow further in the coming months and years. When you sit back and look at the rental stats, they are mind-boggling. There are now 4.5 million privately rented homes in the UK, where in 1997 this figure was close to 2.7 million. Thank you to all the lovely data crunchers at the ONS for these figures. But when we do look at it like that, very few industries have grown as fast nor generate as much cash. So the cost of putting a roof over our heads is one of the major outgoings in the majority of people's budgets. And with median rents at about £700 per month, which rises to about £1,425 in London, the UK rental market generates lots and lots of cash, guys. So it's a big cash-rich industry. It can be full of quite amateur landlords as well. I had one landlord who was just a little bit quirky and once a month wanted to specifically go out for dinner to a fish head curry restaurant. Not weird at all, but now that I think about it. But a lot of these landlords have ended up in position either through retaining property as they trade up the property ladder through their lives and simply supplementing income and pensions. They don't think of it like running a business. So this is probably where individual landlords get a bad name and we all get painted with the same brush. And common tenant complaints are poor standards, poor repairs, biggest of all, deposits which are not being returned properly, which shocks me as the whole deposit scheme is a breeze to use, where a third party can hold the tenant funds. So in some ways, big companies entering the rental market should actually raise standards as they have brand and legacy as well. Guys, last week I was trying to sort out one of our lettings. And this is the before of what the previous tenants left it looking like. This is the after, and I'm quite pleased with this. I'm not gonna lie, like, managed to get the bill to sale on time and everything was turned around within 48 hours. Yes, it can be a little bit stressy trying to get these lets in order, but I do find that kind of rewarding as well. So in some ways, big companies entering the rental market should raise standards as they have a brand legacy as well to maintain. And not to mention the resources and professional approach to business. And remember, rising tides lifts all the boats, as they say. So it should improve standards across the sector as it makes the sector more competitive. For large companies like Lloyds and Waitrose, it's a huge market and diversifies massively from their core business. Both banking and retail are sectors that are getting hammered. Margins on financial products are squeezed for a multitude of reasons, and we all know that bricks and mortar retail has gone into decline for some time now. And so this strategy of building real estate rental portfolios could be a great way to mix commercial and residential space. Large department stores, for example, can have a more consolidated product range and turn more floors into flats. It happened pretty much on our doorstep in London some time ago, with Daniel's department store in Ealing feeling the decline very early on and converting floors into flats. Now, with that all being said and done, there are some problems with being a landlord. Now, generally landlords get a bad rep for ripping off tenants, but the reality is the majority are not. Rental yields on average are terrible, especially where so much work goes in. So the average rental yield in the UK is 3.5%, dire, and in London it's as low as 2.6%. Even the best performing regions in the UK struggle to get above 4.5%. And so cost of capital, interest rates, they'd all need to be very low for it to work, and rising interest rates would totally decimate the average landlord. But then why do landlords stay in the industry for rubbish yields is the question. What's the point of all the stress? Well, the real profits come from realizing capital appreciation. For the majority of landlords, either knowingly or unknowingly, are making a leveraged bet on the property market, which have been spectacular over the past 20 years, not gonna lie. But the question is, will that continue? Probably not. All the major research now points to a long-term weakening of the housing market, but that doesn't mean house prices will collapse. But it does mean that expectations are that house prices will not rise with the same va-va-voom as they have in the past. Factors like low levels of migration, exit from the EU, tighter planning laws, tax policy are pulling the house market back to more respectable long-term returns even. But having said all that, we should expect a fair bit of volatility which dampens the returns as the new normal for the housing market emerges, even though it has yet to fully transpire, with house prices just on a tear recently. The other point that I should make is housing is a political hot potato in the UK, and stories like this are divisive. So if you can, give this video a like, as I know I will get a few thumbs down. Now, home ownership itself is super controversial in the UK, and it has become more controversial as the number of people owning their own homes has been decreasing as the years have gone. Prices are out of reach, it's hard to put together a deposit, and even with the crappy yields, rents can still take up so much of income that it makes the switch from rental to ownership frustratingly out of reach. The hot potato got so hot that policies and laws were introduced to target those part-time landlords with higher taxes to drive them out of the industry. That's one of the big risks with corporate landlords with huge portfolios. With public opinion support this as it grows, and governments in the past have imposed rent controls, taxation, and even nationalisation. So it's cautious strategy over the medium to long term. With all that being said, now as an investor in London, there is blooming news that the underperformance of London versus the UK is grinding to a halt. In fact, London and her suburbs are now booming, with June data now being available. Housing activity in the most expensive areas of London reached record highs as lockdown easing begins to draw more people back into the capital. So click here for my thoughts on what's going on in my neck of the woods, and I'll see you over there.